The Anarcho-Capitalist Babysitting Problem. Introduction. Anarcho-capitalists love to boast about their two sacred commandments. Everything is subjective value and everyone owns themselves. Yet, the moment a child shows up, their tidy little system collapses into incoherence. Suddenly, the apostles of "no one can tell you what's good for you" decide, actually, parents can tell kids what's good for them. Suddenly, the holy grail of self-ownership comes with a fine print clause: some assembly required, check back when you're grown up. So which is it? Do all humans own themselves and determine their own values? Or do mom and dad get to be temporary dictators until the magic self-ownership fairy sprinkles autonomy dust on the child? Subjective value. Until it's inconvenient. The Austrian Catechism says value is subjective. Each individual decides what's valuable to them, and nobody else can override it. But when the individual in question is a toddler, ancaps suddenly switch gears. Parents must decide. For the child's own good. Translation: the subjective theory of value applies only to adults libertarians find convenient. For children, we impose an objective theory of value dressed up as paternal wisdom. But if you can suspend subjectivism for kids, why stop there? Why not suspend it for the elderly, the insane, the drugged, or the poor sap who just made a bad choice? Once you've admitted exceptions, the absolutist purity of subjective value collapses like a house of Rothbardian cards. 2. Self-ownership, the libertarian Santa Claus. Ancapism chants. Everyone owns themselves. Like it's a magic spell that will solve all problems. But what does that even mean for a child? At what age do you wake up and suddenly own yourself? Is it 12? 18? The moment you read Rothbard without laughing? If it's gradual, then self-ownership isn't an absolute right but a messy negotiation. If it's sudden, then who blows the whistle at the exact moment? Some private arbitration agency? Then it's not natural at all, it's granted. And if parents own children until then, congratulations, libertarians, you've reinvented slavery with bedtime stories. 3. Enforcement. Choose your own contradiction. Let's suppose a child thinks they're ready to own themselves at 14, but the parents disagree. Who decides? The answer in ANCAP Fantasyland is private defense agencies. Which means self-ownership is actually whatever the highest bidder enforces. So much for natural rights. Your autonomy comes down to whether your parents hired Blackwater Kids, LLC, or you could scrape together enough allowance money to hire a rival agency. This isn't freedom. This is a playground custody battle run by mercenaries. 4. The broader farce. If anarcho-capitalism can't tell us who owns a child, then it can't tell us who owns anything. Property rights, supposedly built on self-ownership, dissolve if you can't define the starting point. And if subjective value gets tossed out the window the moment kids enter the picture, then it was never a universal principle to begin with. It was just a convenient slogan. So what are we left with? A philosophy that pretends to abolish the state but can't even answer who decides bedtime. Conclusion. The problem of children doesn't just complicate anarcho-capitalist theory, it detonates it. If children don't get subjective value, then subjective value is a sham. If children don't get self-ownership, then self-ownership is a fairy tale. And if private enforcers must decide when someone graduates to full autonomy, then ancapistan is just a privatized state with a different uniform. In the end, anarcho-capitalists are left in the most humiliating position of all. The only way their theory survives childhood is by betraying its own principles. The moment a baby is born, the ANCAP utopia collapses into contradiction.